Hi, everybody. I'm Corinne Patman, the new chair of the Metro Board, relatively new, and I want to welcome you on behalf of the Metro Board and administration to our public hearing on the goal setting for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise program, covering the fiscal years 2017 through 2019. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kim Williams, Metro's Deputy Chief Procurement Officer, who serves the agency in the DBE liaison role, to begin today's presentation. And I want to thank all of you for coming.
Good morning. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank everyone that came from our DBE community, and I know we have some partners here from the City of Houston. So our purpose today is to talk about our requirement to every 3 years set a DBE goal for the agency. And so I'll briefly explain the role of the various programs we have, this process, and then we will have one more speaker come up, our Director of Small Business, to go through the calculation of how we got to the percentage that will be under for the next 3 years. And then we'll open it up for the audience to give any feedback and comments. Today does mark the opening of the public comment period to talk about the DBE goal and to provide feedback at this hearing or if later by writing. And so we'll talk about that too as we go through the program. So in general, the agency has made a commitment to encourage and work with small businesses on our different procurement opportunities. We have an equal opportunity non-discrimination program. We have 2 programs. We have a small business enterprise program, which is done by the agency. We have a disadvantaged business enterprise program, which is the one we're talking about today, that is required by the Federal Transit Administration. The DBE program is race and gender specific. However, Metro operates both programs in a race and gender neutral method. And that has been coordinated with the Federal Transit Administration as well as our local stakeholders. We do in-house a small business certification, but the disadvantaged business enterprise certification is only done by one entity in our region, and that's the City of Houston. The Office of Small Business is the department established by the agency to work with small businesses to promote information, to encourage them to bid, and to work with them through any obstacles they may face through the process. We provide outreach and training, and we also track and monitor both participation of disadvantaged business firms as well as small business enterprise firms on all contracts and activity. As I mentioned, we have 2 programs. For the small business goal, we have an overall commitment of 35%, and that is done through board policy. We establish that goal on a contract-by-contract basis. However, there are situations where small businesses happen to end up on a contract without a goal. We also track and keep and monitor that as well. We do not set DBE goals on our contracts. That is done through a calculation by the federal government. And what we do is whenever DBEs appear on our contracts, we track and monitor their participation. This is mandated by the FTA. The calculation is also mandated by the FTA. Metro does not have the ability to change or alter that calculation in any way. Once the calculation is complete, we submit it to FTA to ensure that we follow the appropriate process, and FTA will then approve that goal, and it will be our goal for the next 3 years. The goal is calculated through a very complex formula, which our director will talk about shortly, but it does first and foremost look at the federally funded projects that the agency will undertake in FY 17 through 19, followed by determination of what work will be required and the number of available DBE firms that are present in our region to perform that work. And again, we'll get into more detail about how that calculation works shortly. This has been our experience of the last 3 years. We achieved our current goal for 13 through 15 was 16%. We've met and exceeded that. This is our total small business and DBE together, 20% in FY13, FY14, 72%, and then FY15, 35%. This year is unique During FY15, we did a major procurement for the Northwest Bus Operating Facility. That was a $200 million procurement. It had a 10% small business goal. So that with that project in our calculation, it brought us to 35%. Without that particular procurement, we would have been at 53. So as you'll see, it's difficult to compare year to year because what we procure changes from year to year. Some years we will have some major procurements that are outliers for us. Again, we're here today because FTA has a federal requirement that we conduct a DBE goal setting process every 3 years. And this process, again, is done through a mathematical calculation. It gets pretty dense, so I ask you to bear with us. Part of today's presentation is explaining that process and how we calculated the goal and what we plan to submit to FTA. And for that, I'll bring up our Director of Small Business, Karen Hudson.
Good afternoon. As Kim stated, as a recipient of federal funds, Metro is required to establish a goal for DBE participation on its federally funded contracts during the 3-year period of 2017 to 2019. To set this goal, Metro is required to follow a FTA mandated calculation. Yes. The goal is, to establish the goal, there's 2 steps. The first step is to develop a base figure using data from the anticipated projects, and then adjusting that base figure using historical data. Before we can develop the base figure, we have to collect data. The first thing we do is identify all of our federally funded projects for the 3 years. We break the projects down by task, and we assign the NICS codes, which is the North American Industry Classification System codes, to each of those tasks along with their budget dollars. We then determine all the firms that could perform each of the tasks and all the DBEs who could perform each of the tasks. Since Metro has approximately 75% of our contractors coming from the 13 surrounding counties, FTA has directed Metro to get our data on firms and DBEs from those counties. So we used the 2014 Census County Business Patterns to determine all firms, and the Texas Unified Certification Program DBE Directory Houston District to determine the DBEs. Once this data is collected, then we can calculate the goal using the FTA formula. So the first step is to determine our federally funded projects. Metro anticipates a budget of $49.6 million for federally funded projects in 2017 through 19. These projects are State of Good Repair, Cypress L-Ramp, Magnolia Transit Center, Rail Improvements, Northwest Transit Center, and because Metro receives funds and passes them on to other agencies for projects, we have to include them in our calculation. So we included the Greater East End Management District Transit Access Sidewalk project in our calculation. The next step is to determine the availability of DBEs compared to all firms using the census and TUCP data. So the following charts will show all the task breakdown with their assigned NAICS codes, the firms that were identified in the census data, the firms that were identified in the TUCP DBE directory, and the percentage of the DBEs compared to all firms. So as you can see, some of our tasks are building construction, utility system, power communication, highway, heavy and civil engineering, concrete and structure contractors, roofing contractors. We also have foundation, electrical, plumbing, heating, building equipment, flooring, building finishings, site preparation, specialty trades, real estate, engineering, testing laboratories, environmental consulting, and landscaping. So once we finish that, the next step is to group those in categories: construction, engineering, professional services, and real estate, and assign their budgets to each of the categories. The budget dollars for each category is then weighted against the total. The weights from this, along with the DBE availability percentages, are then used to calculate the DBE availability for each category. Those are then added together to come up with the base figure for FY 17 through 19, which is 16.23%. So at the end of step 1, we have the base figure of 16.23%. Our next step is to look for any evidence that might impact that base figure. Metro looks at our past DBE participation for the last 3 years and uses the medium number. In FY 13, 14, and 15, our DBE only participation on federally funded projects was 10%, 29%, and 18% respectively. The medium number is 18%. So taking our base figure of 16.23% and averaging it with the medium number of 18%, we come to our FY 2017 through 19 DBE goal of 17%. FTA requires that we post our methodology and our rationale, and that is posted on this floor in room 2023, and it is available for public viewing. Metro and FTA will also accept written comments on the goal through July 30th. Comments can be sent to my attention or directly to the FTA. Contact information for myself and the FTA was made available on the sign-in table for our guests. Any comments that Metro receives will be included in our package sent directly to the FTA. And that concludes the presentation of our FY 17 through 19 DBE goal setting, and we open the floor for comments.
Thank you very much. Comments? Anybody have a comment? Well, this is a very important goal for this board. It's very important to our mission to be good community citizens. And so we very much appreciate the efforts of staff and of the public, those of you who took the time to come down here today. And we welcome any written comments. So thank you very much for your time. And any comments from board members? All right. Yes, sir. Want to go to the microphone?
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Andre with MEK Floors.
Thank you, Andre.
Who do we speak to about getting on the vendors list to bid on upcoming projects?
Kim Williams, right
Sitting
there.
right next to him. Thanks.
And Michael Kime. That's an easy one. Anyone else? Thank you all so very much. We'll stand adjourned.